Good evening and welcome to my channel, Princess Lillian's Gardens. I hope you've been well. Tonight, I aim to discuss the topic that I've got out there, and that is be prepared to grow. When you start out, you'd have to know that things do not remain the same, things change, and often this is growth. If you start out, I'll give an example in a garden and you put your seeds into the soil, the seeds are going to germinate and they get bigger. You need to be prepared that you're going to need bigger space to be able to accommodate the new size that you are currently. I have a lot of questions about my garden has started to grow, but now I have not got any space because the place is too full. This is because of what we call overcrowding. When you have too many seeds close to each other, definitely it's going to become overcrowded when they get to the height of their growth level. Even if you say, I put in a few chive just because of the pests, or I put in a few marigolds just to drive away the pests, all these things are going to be what you should have considered because they are going to be present when these plants reach their mature stage. And it depends on the kind of garden that you want, that you are prepared to have. That's what's supposed to drive the amount of seeds that you put into the ground. Another example that I can give is if you come along as a YouTuber, I'm a YouTuber, you come along as a YouTuber, you have to be prepared to grow so that you will not fall into a situation where, oh, what do I have to do? And this is too difficult for me. And it becomes a lot of complaints. In our minds, we should be prepared because there are things that need to be done. These things that need to be done, we should try to do them. Sorry. We should be prepared to try and do these things. Hello and welcome very much. Thank you. I can see you there. I appreciate your coming. And tonight, I'm trying to talk about the growth that we are supposed to be expecting in our gardens, in our YouTube channels, and it should not come as a surprise to us because if you put in the effort, you would grow. And then you don't want to now stop putting in the effort because you don't want to stop growing. You want to carry on putting in the effort that you put in initially because that is the best way to grow. If you are growing as a gardener, the plants that you're growing, you want to carry on putting in the effort. When they get to flowering stage or they get to fruiting stage, you want to put in the effort so that you can have your proper harvest. I'm going to give a few examples. If you're growing green leafy vegetables and you get to the stage where the leaves are still quite small, that is all right. You start carry on putting in the effort. When your leaves become big, you should put in the effort to do the harvesting because without doing that, some pests will come along and help you to harvest it. They'll make holes in it. So we have to be prepared to put in the effort, and that is how things are going to be easy. If what we are growing are flowers, when it's time for us to prune them so that we continue to have more flowers, we should be prepared to do this as well if you're looking forward to having a beautiful garden. And finally, if you're looking forward to having fruits as your harvest, then we should be prepared to ensure pollination. Thank you very much, Britain Farm. I'm seeing you. Hello, I'm seeing you there. If you are prepared, you would know that when your fruits are ripe or they have got to a stage that we call blushing, you want to harvest them because you don't want them to remain there without then being looked after. My fourth example is growing as a YouTuber, you need to put in the effort. You don't expect people to just come along and surround you. You also have to surround others. You have to be prepared to show the love. You have to be prepared to do some work to make sure that when people visit your channel, they can find interesting videos to watch. That's how I believe is a very good way to grow our channels, because if I come along to your channels, I've seen the interesting things that you're doing. I don't just stay for 3 minutes. I would watch that entire video and even watch more. That's because it's interesting. So we have to make an effort to show the interesting parts of what we are doing. We should not just sit there and say, I'm running a live stream or I'm uploading this video anyway, whether it's good or not. We want to make the effort, we want to be prepared to actually give our audience a good time while they're with us. We want to be prepared to teach our audience a few things so that when they leave, they will know that, okay, that is interesting. I learned at least one thing. And even if your audience come along and they're more expert than you, and they see you hammering in the same points that they already know, they'll be glad to watch your channel. But when somebody comes along who knows more about this thing and he sees what you have written or said, they will just be like, this person is not trialing what she's trying to teach everybody. We should try and put in content that is helpful, that is correct. Because in the case of travel or in the case of just visiting sites in town, like play centers, a lot of people may come across your video and just say, oh, yes, I wanted to visit Cornwall. I wonder what I could see. And if you put up a video about the Eden in Cornwall and somebody sees it, they want to know, okay, you can buy your ticket online, you can book it, and then the following day you just go there. They will find that interesting. That is because you have shared correct knowledge. Don't share to someone a knowledge that is is not going to be correct, and then the person will be half in a very big situation that is difficult. It's very important, yes, Britain Farm, thank you. It's very important that we share good information. We don't just elongate our video that we want to upload while just there isn't anything that we are doing. I like you to be able to share good information, to be able to upload the results of what you're showing us, because I've seen a lot of videos and somebody has come along and is trying to show you grow this thing like this. I will do an update, but you never see if that thing worked or not. That's really not how a channel would grow. Yes, you may have a lot of viewers, but what is more important is to have that joy that you have shown the people how to do this thing and you have shown them this is what they will get as a result. This is how um, teachers do in school. This is how big businesses do. They really, really show you this is how this thing is supposed to be used. You buy their product, you take it home, and you find that that is really how it works. If it doesn't work that way, you send it back. On YouTube, you can't send it back if it doesn't work that way because you wouldn't see the person that you bought the thing from. I mean, the information from anyway, because it's just YouTube. But it does not mean we should abuse what we are teaching and just, I'll just teach this, put it there, 15 minutes, and I'm gone. I always enjoy it when I see good information. I don't mind watching the same information that I have seen in 3 or 4 places, even information that I know before. When I see somebody uploading that information, I find it really, really interesting. And that is the very best way that I think we can grow our channels and also grow our gardens, because the channel is just very much the same as growing a garden or growing your hair. You have to do it in a way that is conducive for growth. You have to be prepared to put in a little effort, and then it becomes easy. So we find that it's not like the easiest thing. There isn't anything that comes easy. We have to work hard, and then it becomes very easy at the end of the day. I was talking last week about growing onions, and I have a lot of friends who have messaged me that they are not able to get seeds. And so I was telling them how to actually grow an onion and be able to get seeds from it. But I think at some point, the people were not able to hear me anymore. So I'm going to now go on and show that onion and quickly just get over that topic of trying to produce your own onion seeds. I said you could find an onion like this. When you look at this onion, as I'm turning it around, you can see a green part of it. Green means life. Green means this onion is breaking dormancy. So I put some water in here, and I put the onion on top just to keep it going. What I'm going to do is put it in the soil, and it will start growing. That is how we're going to produce seeds. When you take an onion like this and you put it in the soil, it will grow, and we will have something like this. This is an onion that I put in the soil, and it's growing. And that's what I was saying last week. Now, this onion, I've been cutting it. I've had to cut it so many, many times because I'm just growing it because I want to be using it for my cooking. The ones that I have for making seeds, I don't cut these leaves at all. So they grow really, really tall and big, and they started to flower. The flower comes up, and that's the one I wait for it to dry. After it has dried, it has some tiny black seeds in it. You can sprinkle these onion seeds and watch it grow. Or better still, try to put one single onion seed into a pot separately and watch it grow. It depends on if you have the space, and the pots have to be very, very small cell pots so that you don't use a lot of space up. So you now watch these onions grow, and that is what you're going to have at the end of the day. First, you will have to put this onion in, let it grow, and produce the seed. I'm still going to harp on the fact that the best gardening practice is to buy seeds that are specifically sold for gardening. But if you cannot get seeds to buy, then you can make your own seeds yourself. That's why I'm suggesting you grow the onion and you harvest the seed, and you would have seeds to grow in the next season. So that's what I was saying, and then the sound went away at some point, and we had to end the live stream. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about, thank you very much. The next thing that I want to talk about is growing garlic. If you cannot get garlic seeds, you can use garlic from the ones you have bought for home use. You will see that in any pack of garlic, some will be large and there will be some that are small. So target the largest ones. The largest ones of your garlic, those are the ones that you should target. And it's only on the day that you want to grow it You can see that this garlic is big. I'm going to show you another garlic that is right inside this packet. This is another one. So we can compare these two. I would like to grow this garlic, but you break it up on the day you want to sow it. Don't break it up like I'm doing my video now. I'm not going to be sowing it today, so I wouldn't want to break it up. But you can see from the bumps on it the size of each clove. So you will now take this clove and put it in the soil. Some people will say, if you put it this way, it won't grow. There's no way you put it in the soil that it won't grow. It will always take care of itself. Shoots know which direction to go. It won't start growing into the soil. It will still grow and come out of the soil. But the best thing is to grow it with a pointy head up. The pointy head should come up, and that's the best way to grow the garlic. And please grow your garlic in very fertile humus soil so that it's well supported with a lot of nitrogen, and you will get a very good harvest at the end of the day. Now, the next thing that I'm going to talk about is if you want to grow carrots. A lot of people have come across mentioning, oh, grow carrots at home from the one you got from the shops. Yes, it's very true. You can grow these carrots at home and you are going to get carrots at the end of the day. It will grow. I've done this many times. You grow the carrots, you water it, you will get leaves and everything coming out, and soon it starts to flower. But most of the time, you're not going to get new carrots under this. So, what you're going to get from growing this carrot is seeds. So, if you're not able to get seeds where you're at, or you want to just produce your own carrot seeds yourself, then grow these carrots. When it flowers, it seeds, you can now grow the seeds and you have carrot seeds to grow. But don't expect that you're going to get some nice carrots out of growing this. This is one that I have grown. I always grow this carrot. I grow it for its flower because the flower of the carrot is very beautiful. It's like Queen Anne's lace. It's off white. It's very pretty. It's just beautiful to have carrot flowers growing. It's, I can't continue to describe how beautiful carrot flowers are. So I like to grow a few carrots every year, not just for the carrots, but for the beautiful flowers that come out of it, and finally for the seeds that I can harvest off it. So if you have carrots that you've eaten, you take off the little tip, you put it in the soil, and the carrots will come on, and you have something to to grow very soon. Now, the way we treat our garden, trying to grow food and everything, that also is the way we should treat our channel. We should try to grow it. We should put in the effort. We should try to learn and understand what needs to be done. What do I have to do? So you have to support other people and they support you in your work. If your work is interesting, it's more likely that somebody will support you. That is why we have to learn to produce interesting work on our channels. And that I can watch for a long, long time. If what I'm seeing is interesting, I'll just stay there and watch it and be like, yes, this is good enough to spend my 10 15 minutes on. And it's also great if it's shorter than that. I will watch two, three, or four before I go. And also, I'll leave you a comment. Leave you a comment just to let you improve your channel, just to let you know that I'm here and I'm always ready to help everybody. That is just my own aim. I want everybody who's working hard to be able to get a good result at the end of the day. You want to grow your channel, you want to make friends, because apart from growing this channel very big, I've made so many friends being on YouTube that it's actually very, very rewarding. I consider it to be a very good way, especially during this lockdown, that we are not being able to go out much. You see so many people you can send messages to on their YouTube channel. You can see what they're doing on their YouTube channel, and it's not made life to be as boring as it would have been in the lockdown. So I see growing your channel, knowing more people on YouTube to be a very good thing that we should try to dedicate our time to and our efforts if we want our YouTube channel to grow much bigger. Because even the people that you see when you go onto a live stream, you probably become friends with them, you check out their work, and if you like it, you subscribe. If they come along and they see your work, if they like your work, then they subscribe. And it's just so interesting. You exchange seeds, you exchange cuttings, you exchange ideas and knowledge apart from what you're doing in uploading your videos. Because sometimes when I'm uploading my videos, I don't remember to say, okay, just use this one. I'm just planting with the proper seeds. And then some people will just get in touch with me and say, we can't get seeds, we can't get seeds. And I know that I have to talk about that. One other thing I'm going to talk about as well is size and pots. I had a friend who said to me that I started growing my garden, but now it's grown so big and it's so tight, and I haven't got a bigger pot. And so I said, excuse me, um, you can just take your plants out of that small pot that's become too tight, and you can use a bag. You can use a bag, something that's a bit tough. It could even be one of these thicker shopping bags that we have nowadays. Gently place your plants in below, put some soil around it, and this will stand upright. It will stand upright if it has soil in it and a plant inside it. And your plant will carry on going. So if your plant has become tight and it's become root bound, you can actually solve that situation by taking it out and putting it into a bag. Then if you now get a pot of the appropriate size later, change it into the pot. If not, it can grow to maturity in this bag. I mean, I'm going to tell you that even the gardening shops, they sell some soil. Thank you very much. Oh, yes, great. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And thanks for coming along. Bye. So you see that you can use the carrier bags or even some stronger bags to do your garden if you're. Sorry, I'm just trying to put the volume away on this. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So if you can get a bigger bag that's bigger than the pot that you say has become too small for your plant, So you can put them in bigger bags and place it outside. If you're growing on a balcony, then you need to place it inside the tray, the base tray, as you would a normal pot. You need to do that because the water will still be coming out. You have to put all holes in the bag. Put holes in the bag. It doesn't need more than three or four. Put holes in the bag and place it on the base tray so that it's able to drain properly. And that bag will just be like a pot. I do this a lot of the time because there's no way that you will not run out of space. Because run out of space, and I want to place a plant somewhere that is sunny, then I will have to get a bag. I put my plant in that bag along with the soil and put it down there. It will carry on growing and there will be no problem. The plants will reach maturity and I'll be able to have my harvest. Yeah, I can see you. So okay. So the space issue for after we started our gardening and the plants have grown too big for the pot can be solved by using bags. They can be some tough bags or even some thick shopping bags like we have nowadays. I mean, in recent times, they will say, buy this bag for life, and that's what you can use for a long, long time. And now we have so many of these bags for lives, nobody knows what to do with them. Please convert them and start using them in your garden. You may be growing your plants in some smaller pots, and then at a stage, you transfer them into this bag because they are often very big. If you now need to put your plants in a bigger space, you can transfer it into these bigger bags along with more soil, and your plant will be very happy with you and grow a lot. Also, if the plant needs supporting, like if it's a tomato plant, you can put the stick into the soil or the cage around it, right with the bag, and your tomato will come out looking good. The most important thing is just that you ensure that you put your plant where there's a lot of sun because that is what the plant needs. The plant needs sunlight, the plant needs heat. These two things are so important that if you have your plant and you keep watering it and watering it, but your plant does not get sunlight, it will grow, but it will not grow big. It will not die, but it will not grow big. If it does not have heat, it will grow, but you will just not get a very good harvest out of your plant. So that at the end of about 4 5 months, putting it in the shade or where it's cold, you will have a little harvest and that will not be too good. So, for this reason, we need to put our plants where there is sunlight and heat because heat comes from the sun anyway. So, those are the two things that are important that you need to do for your plant. We know that if you don't water your plant the correct amount of water that it needs, it will die. That is basic. If a plant doesn't get water, the plant will die. Or if a plant gets too much water, then the plant will die as well because it will become waterlogged. The roots cannot stand it. This leads me to talking about our peppers. Our peppers need water to stay alive, but you should not overwater your pepper because water pepper appropriately Let the water drain out and wait until it's almost dry. Don't wait for it to get dry. Wait until it's almost dry and then put some water again. Water is so important. There's some adverts in which they say water is life. You have to water it appropriately. Either it needs a lot of water or it needs little water. Water is just important for every plant that we grow. So that's one basic thing that we need to have in mind. The other things that we must also consider are the nutrients, the amendments that we put for our plants. Mainly we are growing in soil, but a lot of ways also exist. We can be growing in water, we can be growing in lacquer, and so on. But growing in soil is what I'm trying to mention now. You need to put some amendments in the plant when you're growing in soil because these plants need the soil for support so that they can stay upright and grow the right way. They also need this soil as a source of nourishment. One thing that I do is when I have bananas, I keep the peels. These are banana peels. I've just had these two today. These are banana peels. They are fresh, and I'll just go into my garden. I could just take the little garden tool, the shovel, uh, take out some soil and put these bananas around some plants. I can break this into about eight and put for several plants. Another way is I can leave these banana peels and let it dry. So even if it is dry, it's still going to have the nourishment that the plants need. Because sometimes you will have so much bananas, you're not going to use them all at the same time. I'm keeping this for when my garden starts in the new season. So I will have a lot of this which I can put into the soil. What I do is I would actually grind them, I put them in the grinder so that they would be almost like powder. And this is what I'll mix with my soil when I'm starting my planting season. Put it into the soil. This contains phosphorus, magnesium, very little nitrogen, calcium, and all those things that it contains actually encourages plants that are going to be growing flowers and fruits. It's very good for them because of the phosphorus and the magnesium. It's nitrogen that we need a lot of for vegetable plants because nitrogen will just allow it to have leaves, 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 leaves. When you have the other nutrients in the soil, they help with the fruiting and the flowering. So our soil, after we have bought it from the shops, we continue to feed the plants for about 6 to 8 weeks. That is why we need to add some more amendments to elongate this time so that when we have put this in, it's not going to be just 6 weeks anymore. This would have broken down and added more nutrients to the soil so that it's going to be longer feeding your plants. Even when the energy in the soil that you bought is running out, the one that you put in will all still be there and it still keep feeding your plants. So this banana peels is very important and we're not using it anymore. Instead of throwing it away, you can just keep it, let it get dry, and you can use it when you start your gardening. I also have eggshells. In fact, I have a lot of eggshells here. Let me just show you. I have a lot of eggshells here because every time we make something that requires eggs, just throw it in the bowl, and the bowl is full of eggshells. I'm going to blend this down into a powder form, and I'll just mix it with the soil as well. I'll just mix it with the soil as well. And the soil has calcium. The soil becomes rich in calcium. Now, this calcium helps to get rid of blossom end rot. That is one very common thing with tomatoes and peppers. Blossom end rot. Now, the thing is, when you water your plants regularly and it contains good enough amount of calcium, then your tomatoes cannot get blossom end rot. But if you do not have enough calcium in the soil, even if you water your plants regularly, it can get blossom end rot. So, in the case of this calcium, it's not just the calcium alone that we are going to depend on. It's both the calcium and the watering that prevents the blossom end rot. Thank you very much. See you again. So now what we are going to discover is that when you have put calcium, that is from the eggshells, in your soil and you water it well, you tend to have tomatoes that just grow along happily and you will get a good harvest. I want to call our attention when we are growing peppers. I've noticed that a lot of people would say, my pepper is coming to an end and it's dying. But this is not supposed to be the case. There's a list of plants that we don't have to grow it this year and then plant it again next year and the year after. We just grow it one year and we can have it there for the next 4 or 5 or 6 years. One very good example is the pepper plant. Your pepper plant can be overwintered and it will come again the following year. Even your tomato plant can be overwintered. But the reason why a lot of people would not bother to overwinter the tomato plant is the tomato in its first year produces a lot. The tomatoes have a very high yield. That's why you don't even bother to say, oh, I want to overwinter my tomatoes. But peppers in the first year, it doesn't produce so much because it's still developing that stem. That stem is not woody enough to bear all the weight. But when you see the stem of a pepper plant the following year, like in year two, you will know that this is actually a pepper plant. The pepper plant will be able to support the weight of a lot of peppers and then it can grow a lot of peppers. So, what we have to do is take off the leaves and then try to take the plant out of the soil. You can put it in another pot and bring it indoors if you're going to be experiencing very cold weather. What I do is I've taken off the leaves, but I didn't take it out of the soil because I have a lot of peppers in a lot of pots. So I just leave it in the pot and bring it out of the cold and put it away. Now, because I've taken off all the leaves, it may start growing again. And if these leaves grow big before the summer comes, they will be taking a lot of energy from my pepper plant. So, what I will do is I'll take off these leaves again. So, if these leaves keep coming back, think of a weed. When you have a weed, you don't uproot the weed, but you keep cutting this weed. The roots remain in the soil, but you keep cutting it, it's not going to die. It's only going to come back stronger. So do the same for your pepper plant. When you bring it in, take off the leaves. If the leaves grow back and it's not yet spring, take off the leaves again. Because if you don't take off the leaves, it will start using. Thank you very much for coming. If you don't take off the leaves, it will start using the energy of your plant that it stored up during the past summer. And over winter, we don't have very good sunlight. This will affect the productivity of your plant the following year. So what I would like you to do is bring in your pepper plant after you've taken off all the leaves, and then if it starts to grow new leaves again, please take out those leaves. And remember, if this was a weed and you take out all the leaves of the weed, but you leave the roots in the ground, this weed will not die. So don't think if I've taken out all the leaves, maybe my pepper plant will die. The pepper plant will not die. So far you have a stem that's up. You can cut it up to where you have the first Y on your stem, and then you take off all the leaves. This pepper plant will remain, and when we have spring, it will come back to life. It will grow so big because it's not just a tiny seedling anymore. It's had some roots in the past, and then the new roots is now the starting point right from spring. It means you're going to hit flowering point very early, and you're going to now get a whole lot of peppers. Because what normally happens is when you put a seed in the ground around March and you get a seedling and you put it outside around May, that seedling is still quite young. Then you prune it, you're waiting for it to grow back, and then it starts to flower. This is already July. By the time you get your flower to fruit, it's August. So you are only going to be harvesting maybe August, September, and winter comes again. You will still be able to harvest in October as well. But then you only harvest for 3 months. But if you have your pepper and you've taken off all the leaves, bring it indoors, you can put it into your garage, you can put it into your basement. Just keep it away from being outside where there will be too much wind, too much cold. Bring it indoors. If you see that it's starting to grow leaves again, then take off the leaves and leave it. It doesn't need watering. It's, if you see that the place is just too dry, then water it because watering will encourage those leaves. If you don't water it, it will go into dormancy. It will pretend as if, oh, I need to go away for now. And that is what is good for the pepper plant. And then when you have a new spring, that is in the following year, then your pepper, which is now big, will start growing while some seeds are only just struggling to germinate. Your own pepper plant will just start throwing out leaves. And that is exactly what you want. That is the best way to grow good peppers and lots of peppers. That is just the secret behind. You suddenly come upon a garden and you see the pepper plants and it has so much pepper on it. Whereas my own pepper at home has maybe like 10 peppers and I'm just wondering every year. So the secret is to take off all the leaves, bring your pepper indoors, and don't water it anymore. If you see that it's starting to grow leaves again, take out the leaves and let it carry on. The roots will remain alive. If you don't take out the leaves, they will be using the energy that the plant has already gained during the summer because during the winter months, there's a time that a plant needs to rest. Even if you are not in a place where there is winter, your pepper plant needs to rest. And you will know it because the pepper production will go down. So that is the time you need to cut down your pepper plant and let it rest. Then when you have a new season in which everything starts growing again, your pepper will start growing again. So it doesn't even really matter whether you're in a, a temperate country or in a tropical country. If your pepper production is going down, just cut off all the leaves, reduce the amount of stem that you have, and keep your pepper without water. Then, when you start having rain again and everything is coming into bloom, your pepper will come back. It will not die. The thing that's been killing my own pepper for years before was I would leave about five, six leaves on, and in doing this pepper plant will now start growing some little ones. It will start using the energy and be growing some little ones. And I found out that when winter is over and spring comes, my pepper plant is already over tired from having to support all those leaves, having to produce all those leaves. And then those leaves actually are lighter and they're elongated. They're seeking the sun because they don't receive as much sun during this period. They will not look very healthy. We still have to cut them off. So why not cut them off if they are growing during the time when they're supposed to be resting? They come back when they're supposed to be resting, then you need to cut off those leaves. Because if you have a weed, that's what I'm giving you as an example, and you take that leaf, you cut off all the leaves and the shoots, all the shoot, the leaves of the weed. If you come back, you will see that this root, the root is starting to grow again. That is the importance of roots. The roots are so into producing a new stem, new leaves, and new flower, and the plant will come back. That is because when you have the roots properly in the soil and it's not being killed by frost, they will come back when it's time. They will come back in springtime when all other plants are coming back to life. Your pepper plants will come back. They will grow and they will now produce bigger peppers. You will have a bigger harvest. This is the thing that we need to take note of about pepper plants. Strawberries is another example that I'm going to give. When you grow your strawberries in the first year, they may come up with about each strawberry plant, I mean, may come up with about 4 or 5 strawberry fruits, and you will enjoy this with your family. Now, you need to see that by the time your strawberry is been in the ground for a year, it has produced so many other clones of itself. That is so many other new strawberry plants. You stick this into the ground or into other pots so that in the second year there will be more strawberry plants and you're going to get a bigger harvest. That is overwintering the strawberry plant as well. Because when you overwinter it, it has now become more plants and you're going to get more fruits to harvest. This overwintering of strawberry plants can be done outside because the strawberry plant will die and you will think there's nothing in the ground there. You will see the leaves turning yellow, it will die, but come spring, they will start growing again. That is what strawberry does. You don't have to bring the strawberry indoors to overwinter them. The strawberry plant can be overwintered outdoors, out there. It doesn't have to be brought in. What you just have to note is that don't plant something else over them, because if you plant something else over them, they will be disturbed. They may not be able to survive because they are living right under the soil. If you're planting something else and the roots are disturbed, they may not grow back. If you have a plant in a situation and its roots or its bulbs or rhizome are not disturbed, that plant will definitely come back. The example is dahlia and the dahlia will come back. The perennial sunflower will come back if they are not disturbed. So if you're growing those in certain areas, it's either you leave them there in the soil and when spring comes, they will come back, or if you're living in a place that is very, very cold, you may want to lift up your dahlia and keep it in a box so that it doesn't freeze outside. I don't lift up all my dahlias. I leave some in the soil outside and I just cover it. But I will lift up some when I want to separate it, because you need to separate your dahlias at some point. You need to um, break it so that it's no longer just one dahlia plant. You now have two dahlia plants because it's going to multiply. And you need to cut your dahlia about 6 to 8 inches from the soil. This is because some of the eyes may actually be on the stem. You don't want to just say, I'm pulling off the bulbs. Don't just pull off the bulbs. Let the bulbs still be attached to the stem, because the eyes may actually be on the very lowest base of the stem. I've seen this before. You want to keep your stem attached to your bulb. By the time you look properly, you wash it and you look at it properly, you may be able to see these eyes. But don't worry if you don't see them. If you plant it the following year, they will grow because they are supposed to grow anyway. They will grow back and you will know that the eyes have been there. And then that portion of the stem will dry up and you can just cut it off with your garden shears. So the dahlia would always come back. In the case of the sunflower, the perennial sunflower, you don't have to do anything. All I do at the end of the season for my perennial sunflower is I just cut it short, because I don't want the leaves to just be dry and be blowing around in the wind. I cut the leaves off and put it into my compost, and I now have just a short place where you can see the spikes of the stem, and I just wait until the following year. It's not these spikes that are going to grow. You're going to get new sunflower plants growing out of the soil the following year. This is because they are perennial. They come back every year. They come back bigger. They come back more beautiful. So you have to take note. Maybe you want to divide. You can tip the pot upside down, take the entire um, plant root bulb, cut it into two with a knife, and then put one back into the pot and put the other into another pot of the same size. Because if your sunflower is growing in the same pot every year, it's going to get very tight in there. That's happened to my plants this year. They've been growing in the same pot, and this their third year. And I had to keep watering and watering. I've got videos of this. I had to keep watering because there was too many of them in the pot. Right from starting from just two perennial sunflowers, by the third year, they've grown so much that I had to water it like 3 times a day to stop these perennial sunflowers because they just kept wilting. That's because there was too many of them in the pot and I didn't get the time to separate them. I should have done that during the winter when they were still resting, when there wasn't anything sticking out of the pot. That would have been the best time to readjust everything that I wanted to do about the perennial plant, because at that time it was in dormancy, it was resting. So all these are little things that we can do, that we will know that we have to be prepared as gardeners that want to grow. We have to be prepared to understand what these plants need. We have to be prepared to um, put in an effort to know what we are going to do to rescue. If something, we have to be able to self regulate. If something does not go according to plan, we have to know what we can do to rescue it. Now, in this one's case, I would refer to the fact that during this past season, my tomato plants fell. They were all staked, but the windstorm was so heavy that my tomato plants fell. They fell and they were not broken, but they were upside down. And then I took a look at my tomato plants and decided that I was going to leave it there. I was going to leave it as it's falling because the fruits were still so small and so many flowers. If I decided to start lifting it back upright, I would lose so many fruits, I would lose so many flowers. So I had to understand what to do about tomatoes that are falling. That is tomato plants that are falling. So if your tomato plants are falling and you've already staked them, just leave them like that on the stake. They didn't fall and touch the ground because they are staked. They just fell over and they were still off the ground. So I now used the stake to lift them up gently and use another stake to support that one so that it can stay upright a bit. Once the stake is upright, the tomatoes were not touching each other too much. And I still got my entire harvest successfully because I didn't lose any of my fruits. So these are the things that we need to consider how to do if we are gardening. We need to be able to self-correct. It's just like learning a new language. You need to know when what you have said is not correct and how you should have said it so that when you say it again, it will be correct. That is learning something and how to self correct if you make a mistake. If your tomatoes are falling off, you know what to do. If you need to lift it or if you need to just leave it that way and it will be all right. Those are the things that we need to consider when we're trying to do our gardens. The other things that we have to consider is whether we have enough room for certain plants. Because I've seen some people who would say, oh, why don't we grow this thing here? And I would have to say to them, this thing will be small for 3 years, but at a certain point, it will get too big that we will not be able to contain it here. That's the reason why we're not growing it in this place. Because I have some other space we can put those things there. We cannot put them in a backyard garden because this one is a very small backyard garden. This is a channel where if you have just a small space, you can see how you can grow. You can grow in containers, and that can produce a very big yield. And you can be able to rotate what you're growing. Because right through summer, I was growing tomatoes in my bed, but over the winter, I'll be growing chives. I mean, not chives. The chives are in the. I'll be growing garlic in that same bed so that the tomatoes are not there now, but I can plant garlic in. That is a way of using the same space so many times that what that space is producing is a very high yield for me. It's producing garlic and it's producing tomatoes. This is one thing that I consider to be very good about gardening. You don't have to be fixated on my garden space can only take this much. You can look at what you can grow at another time of year, so that while the other plants are not around, you can be growing these ones. And also, very important to mention, salad plants are very good to grow after you are finished with your summer plants, because a lot of them like growing in cool weather. So if you have a set of salad plants, you take a look at the packets and see when you're supposed to grow it. You see the ones that you're supposed to grow in winter, they grow so well, and you will be very happy for doing that. They, you will have a lot of salad for the um, for the for the winter period, without having to go out and buy all so many different types all the time. You can just have some right in your backyard. This is one good thing that I consider as an advantage of having a garden of your own. It's a way forward for what we have as our situation nowadays. It's a way to try to grow a few things that you like to eat. There's really no point in trying to grow something that you're not going to eat anyway, or that you don't know anybody that is going to eat it. But the few things that you know, or the several things that you know you're going to eat, you can grow a few of them. You don't have to grow everything you're going to eat unless you have the space and the energy. You have to consider the energy you're going to use in producing all these things, because it's very possible for me to go in my garden and plant such a wide variety of things, put the seed in the ground, because I've already done the seed over the winter, put the seedlings in the ground and buy some more seedlings and put them in the ground. They're also young. I come along and I water it and everything. And then in 2 months' time, when they're now big, they need a lot more energy for you to handle even the harvesting. Harvesting is not, I'm just going to get there and have it all harvested. I have my potatoes in the ground right now, and I'm supposed to harvested them yesterday, and then I said I will harvest them today, and then I'm going to now say I'm going to harvest them tomorrow again. So that's just the thing that I'm saying. You need to consider that you're going to be able to make time. You also need to consider that you're also going to have the energy, because even you have the energy, but you have so many other things that you need to do. So you may not have the time to just say, I'm going to be harvesting potatoes, because you can think in your mind that the potatoes will not get spoiled anyway. So you just shift it until another day. That is why you have to measure the amount of things you're going to plant. That this is the amount that you can look after. Plant with purpose. Don't just plant with no plan. Plant with a plan in mind that, okay, this thing will be harvested at about this time. Would I have the time to do it? Because it's not as if I'm doing a lot of harvesting now, but I still have a lot of other plants to look after in here, because I have indoor plants. So that's not left me a lot of time to harvest my potatoes, because this is the time that I used to dedicate to harvesting to looking after my indoor plants in the past years. And I was just learning to grow potatoes this year, because I was just practicing it, because I've been learning to grow potatoes for about 3 years now. I've learned to grow potatoes from Mr. King on the Terry King channel. Learned to grow potatoes from the Little Farmers Farm. So I just thought, let me go along and try to put to practice everything that they've said about what I'll put below the manure, and then the compost and the richer soil, and just grow my tomatoes after chiting them indoors. I did the chiting. I put them in the soil. making sure that I had manure and very rich soil below, and it's grown very beautifully. The only thing now is it's time for me to harvest them, and I'm just waiting to have some company along so that we can all harvest it together, because don't want to exert all that energy by myself. We'll be harvesting potatoes. I want to have some other people helping me along, because I'm looking after some other indoor plants that are necessary for me to look after. Yeah, I have a few indoor plants that I enjoy the the looking after and propagating, so that I would have a lot of little plants during the spring for swapping and giveaways. That is what I do with my plants during the winter. I take a lot of cuttings. I take a lot of bits and pieces. For example, the spider plant is not going to be a cutting. Spider plant is just taking the pieces off it that have started growing. You just take them off and I grow them on, so that during spring I'll have a lot of spider plants for people who want a spider plant. So the other important thing I'm going to mention is growing our channels on YouTube. Because even as gardeners, we come along and we want to grow our channel. Everybody's growing their channel, and this is very interesting. But what we also have to remember is that it takes time to grow your garden. Therefore, it's going to take time to grow your channel as well. It takes effort to grow your garden. It's going to take effort to grow your channel as well. And it takes planning to grow your garden and a bit of understanding. That is why you have to understand and plan to grow your channel. Then you will be able to see some more successful results from the input that you do. Because you can't just leave your channel, not turn up there, not show any interest, and you will just say, oh, my channel is not growing. If you aim to grow your channel, you need to work at it. You need to try to understand what what needs to be done. I don't want to keep repeating the same words in the same paragraph. You have to understand what requirements you want to fulfill to be able to grow your channel. So, understanding it will help you to be able to think in your mind that it's been easy, but it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a bit of effort. It's going to take planning, and it's going to take making sure that you're enjoying what you're doing. If you're trying to develop a channel and you're not enjoying what it takes to grow the channel, then you're not enjoying it, and then it's not worth it. But if you enjoy being here, you enjoy the company, you enjoy the rapport, the people that you get to know, then carry on growing your channel, carry on getting to know other people, carry on with your topic. Even if you want to start another topic, you may do so, but you have to make sure that you're enjoying what you're doing, because YouTube is not about 1 million subscribers and then you don't even really like it. Yes, it will put money in your pocket, but money is not the number one thing that you're running after. You're running after being satisfied. You're running after satisfaction. You're running after knowing other people. You don't just come out there and you haven't made any friends, you don't know anybody, you have this bag of money, but you're you're just on your own, spending your money on your own. It's not going to be too interesting. But if you knew a lot of people and you're all growing together and you're all learning together and moving ahead together, it becomes very interesting here on YouTube. And I can assure you that, because I have seen it, I've seen a lot of growth with people's channels and how they enjoy each other's company. They learn from each other and they help each other out. They send each other like information, and this is what's going to happen next, and this is what we should do and what we should not do. And they help each other out, not some sort of backstabbing and maligning each other's channels, but being honest with your comments and being truthful and considerate, and not just being, oh, what is this person doing now? This person is just um, here, doesn't know. There's some people who have all the technical skills, and there's some people who are here who are just trying to learn. So you, it's just a place that's for everybody to grow, for everybody to learn and better themselves. Because when you come across YouTube, that's a playing ground. I call it a playing ground. It's a playing ground where you will learn so much. It's not a playing ground where you go to and you will not learn. If you want to learn how to do anything at all, whatsoever, if you want to learn do how to take off a ring, because I saw it the other day, you want to take a ring is tight and you want to know what to do to take it off, they show you on YouTube. If you want to learn how to, I just got this cactus. It's a gift. I just got this cactus today, and it's got thorns. I don't like sharp things, and so I've just gone to find out how am I going to report this thing, because it's in quite a tiny pot. So that's what I'm saying about planning ahead. It's in a very little pot. So even if I'm not going to replant it today, there's still going to be a time that I have to replant it. Okay. I'm going to go on Facebook and try to find the name of this cactus. And and I've been on YouTube to find out how I should report it. Even without knowing the name, it's a cactus that's got thorns. And so I put the question into YouTube. So how am I going to report this cactus that's got thorns? And they said to me, use kitchen tongs. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to hold it by this waist and pull it out of the pot. So I'm not going to be touching it with my hand and risking some thorns passing through the gloves I'm wearing. Because that's what a lot of people will tell you. They will say, oh, wear thick gloves and do it. But checking on YouTube, it says use a pair of kitchen tongs, hold it by the waist, the joints between the soil, pull it out and check the roots. Then, if you want to put it in the same pot, I'll put it in the same pot. But if I want to put it in another pot, then I'll do that. But I know that my hands are safe because I'm not going to be touching it at all. So the idea about holding it with the tongue, pulling it out, still holding it with the tongues and checking the roots, because you need to check the roots of every plant, especially if it's a succulent that you get. They die quickly. So you check the roots, make sure it's all right, and then you put it back in. So I know that these thorns are not, well, they wouldn't be pricking my hands because I'm going to be holding this with some pair of kitchen tongs, and everything will go smoothly. That's what I expect. So that is something that I've learned of YouTube. So when you go on YouTube with any topic, you get a result. The other day, we wanted to repair the zipper on a we wanted to repair the zipper on a duvet cover. The zipper on a duvet cover, and the zipper has become and the zipper, like on its first ride out, wouldn't even close the the thing. There was no point running back to the shop with it because of all this situation. I'm going and tell them, oh, this your duvet cover thing or the other. Who even knows when it goes? Maybe it was after we bought it that it broke anyway. You're checking YouTube, we got a result for that. And the zipper was repaired just using pliers. That's off YouTube. YouTube is a good source of knowledge, it's a good source of information. And so I try to tell my group of friends, please upload correct information. Please upload important, correct information so that when somebody tries what you say, they will get the correct result. That's why in my gardening, I always try to show you step by step what needs to be done, because gardening is, most things in life is just like science. If I'm doing it here, you should be able to do it in a year's time in another part of the world. I just have to tell you about what time you need to start and tell you how you should do it, what steps you should take. Because if what I'm doing, you can't copy it really, that's not going to be feasible. Somebody comes along, copies what you are doing, and gets the wrong result. Then it means you have not uploaded it, you have not explained it thoroughly enough for us to be able to understand. So please, when you upload your videos, I would always say make sure it's correct so that we can copy it, we can do it well. In my last video, I mentioned a few people that I've watched them severally, and I've also watched um, so many other people whom I've not mentioned yet. I'm going to mention them in my future videos, and I've learned how to grow so many things from them, because there's nobody who has come with the knowledge of how to grow everything. You just have to learn how to grow it, and then the knowledge that you had in the past, you can bring it to play as well and add it to what you have learned, and then you will get a very good result. So my own special videos are about growing tomatoes. This is because I have learned how to grow tomatoes for so many years, that I know how to grow tomatoes well, and I know how to plan it. But it's not something that I'll just say. You don't have to plan it, you don't have to think about it, and you will just grow it. You would have to plan where you want to put it. You would have to plan the kind of soil you're going to use, and where you're and when you're going to put it outdoors. That is the temperature that you have outside before you start putting your tomatoes out. You would have to get to the temperature that is actually okay, that your tomatoes are not going to die. Your plants are going to remain alive, because the tomato plant is mainly like a plant that likes warm weather. So you want to make sure that when you're growing it, even though you can start growing it indoors, if it's just a house, I'm not talking about if you have a very big garage or a very big indoor garden, you will start growing it indoors, and you now take it outside at a time when it has maybe about 8 leaves. This has to be that the temperature is warm enough for you to be able to put it out there. Because if it's not warm enough and you put it outside, your tomato plant will suffer. It will stay backwards for the next 2 weeks, and you will just be wondering and be looking at it every day. If you put your tomatoes out when the soil is warm, when spring has actually truly come, and plants are growing very well, that's when you should put your tomatoes outside. If you put your tomatoes outside at this time, they will just kick in about 2 days after you've put them into the soil, and they will start growing frantically. That is what you want. You don't want to put your tomato plants outside when it will still be cold, and you will now be wondering, oh, why did I put them outside? You want to make sure you put your tomatoes out when the temperature is just right, when you've seen so many other plants are growing, and you can say, yeah, the season is actually here. That is the time to put your tomato plants outside. Also going to be growing many other things that also you grow indoors and you take them out. The reason why we grow indoors is because they are still tender, they are still small, they need to be more cared for. That's why you're growing them indoors, because you want to be in charge of making sure they don't have pests on them. You want to be in charge of making sure they don't have wind or rain just pelting over them and washing them off. You want to make sure that birds don't eat them. Those are pests as well, but a different kind of pests. They come along. If you plant your beans outside and they're just germinating, the birds will just swoon down, pick your beans. And at the end of the day, if you planted an entire yard of beans and maize and you were expecting 50 plants, you may just come along and you will find only 20. Yeah, those are birds. Birds have taken up your beans and your corn because they like to eat when they see it outside. But if you start your beans and your maize indoors, make sure that they've germinated. You've got about 8 to 10 leaves on the maize, about 4 or 5, I mean, about 4 or 6, they come in pairs, but 4 or 6, and then you now put it outside when it's about 6 inches high. There's no bird that's, because it's become grass and leaves now. There's no bird that's going to come along and start eating buds and eating grass and leaves. What you're now going to be facing are pests. But because these plants are already big as well, the pests are not going to be able to overcome them so easily if your soil has been well looked after. So these are all the things that we want to consider when we're trying to grow our garden. Because growing our garden and growing um, our garden for food and growing our garden for flowers are just about the same thing, because the food that we are trying to produce may be leaves, the food we're trying to produce may be the flowers, and the food we're trying to put may be the fruits. But if you're growing your garden for just the beauty of the flowers, it means you stop at the flower stage. And for this reason, we need to have an understanding that these flowers aim to produce fruit, so that when you see a flower that's lost maybe its petals, it's looking old, you need to go there and deadheading, you take off these flowers so that new, more flowers can come along, and you would have your garden looking beautifully flowered for a longer time. Examples of these are in roses, dahlias, zinnias. You need to just come along, deadhead it a bit, and then go away, allowing the roses to carry on doing their thing. This will also prevent ants from bringing aphids over to your plants, because when your garden is not being looked at, it's not being cleared out of some, this flower is already aging, let me take it off, some leaves are falling into the pot, let me take it out. But it seems as if they are all just there, The old flowers are still on the stem. The leaves that are yellowing are still on the stem. The leaves that have dropped into the garden bed are all still there. Then you will have a lot of ants coming along. What ants like to do, apart from walking around on your plants, which is all right, there's no problem with that, is that they bring aphids along. I've got a video about that on my channel. They will actually be encouraging the aphids, showing the aphids where to go. And they get these aphids up your plant. The aphids will be sucking the plant because the ants wouldn't do that. The aphids will pierce the plant and suck it, and then whatever they have as their produce, that is, maybe they secrete it out. That's what the ants like to eat. The ants will now take this and take it back to their own home and maybe use it to feed their young and things like that. Those are just the things that happen more often when we probably have a few dead flowers that we haven't taken off, a few leaves that are yellowing that we haven't taken off. But this is not the only situation that makes us to have aphids. Aphids will always come if you keep your eyes off. So that's why we'll keep our eyes on our flowers and make sure that when you see see a little black patch, look at it very well. And you probably see that these little are they look like bubbles or something. Those are tiny insects that are called aphids, and they're going to damage and they're going to overtake and overrun your entire um, flower. So what you want to do is you can take that one off and you take that flower off by its own stem and you get rid of it. That way, those aphids cannot breed and have more because it would have been maybe two or three aphids that climbed your plant with the help of the ants that is breeding, that is now producing and breeding those ones. So what you now see is that the ants will be rearing them. They'll be running around trying to make sure that they're safe from other insects. But you are the owner of your garden. You come along, you pick up that flower, the ants will be trying to run away. They'll be trying to escape. But you can send all of them to a better place so that your garden can have a bit of peace and health. Because if you have your garden overrun with aphids, it doesn't look beautiful at all. It doesn't bring a healthy, if you are going to be growing fruits, it doesn't bring healthy fruits. It allows the plant to have a setback in its fruit production. So you have to keep an eye on aphids in the garden bed. There are other ways of controlling aphids by use of some liquids that are sold in the shops. Some people will say you can make it by yourself, maybe with soapy water, spray it onto your plants, and so many other ways. There are many ways that's being said that you can use to control the aphids. What I do most often is look at the plants, try to pick out the aphids before you actually start putting some liquids and things. Because if the aphids are still there and you're just aiming to kill them with those liquids, you're going to have a lot of aphids to kill. But if you have taken your time to physically remove as much aphids as you can find, if you see a stem and the aphids are on it, and you've removed that stem, and you now come along and put maybe soapy water or neem oil and some other oils, there will be less aphids to kill, and you will probably just be targeting a smaller number. And using your oil and your soap will be more effective. That would be a much more effective way of getting rid of aphids from your garden. If you are expecting to just come along and use neem oil, use soapy water, and that's the end of aphids in your garden, there will be so many aphids that some of them will not even be touched. by the organic liquids you are trying to put on them. You just have to physically remove some of them, either with a tissue, or you cut if they are around flower, you cut off that particular flower, or you clean it off a stem, and you now apply whatever you want to in the form of neem oil, soapy water, and so on and so forth. It will work best that way. Now, talking in terms of getting rid of ants from your garden, I don't really believe in getting rid of ants from my garden because I actually want all this wildlife to be in my garden. I want the ants, the bees, the butterflies, the squirrels, the birds, the grasshoppers. I even saw dragonflies at some time. I want all of them to be in the garden. They can have their food and things. What I don't want is to have an entire ant hill located in my garden because there will be too many ants. So if you have a situation like that, then you can use borax with sugar. You create a trap. It's an ant trap. So you borax, mix a spoonful of borax and two spoonfuls of sugar in about a cup of water. No, not that kind of cup of water, not the standard cup of water. Let me just tell you the volume that I mean. In about 60 mils of water, 60 mils of water, that's four spoonfuls. And then you will put it into a small bottle. That small bottle will probably be a 100 ml bottle. So you put 60 mils of water in a 100 ml bottle, and you make a hole in it, and you put it in to your garden bed. The ants will come searching for the sugar. They will drown. The ones that do not drown will go out and go back to their ant hill, and not a lot of ants will be coming to your garden anymore. But you don't necessarily have to get rid of all the ants. You just want to get rid of enough so that they don't get rid of your garden for you. But I don't believe in getting rid of all the ants. But you have to protect your garden. You have to make sure that the garden floor is neat, is clean, and all those things will actually discourage the ants from coming. But if they are still not discouraged, that's when you probably need to put out a trap so that they will be discouraged and you can have your good harvest in your garden, because you can't just labor, put in all the effort, and the ant comes along and makes a hole in your pepper. I've got a video of how the ants have come along and they've made holes in my sweet peppers. The sweet peppers take a long time to mature. It's got to get big, and then it's got to ripen. So even if I wasn't waiting for it to ripen, the ants didn't actually allow it to get big enough before they started making holes in them. So that's one reason why I didn't want the ants in my pepper pots. I didn't want them to be around there because they always make holes in the pepper. But the ants can walk around on the other plants and they are not actually making holes. The only thing they do is they can bring aphids up my rose plants, and they bring aphids up apple trees, cherry trees. So you've got to be very, very, very careful of that. Ants, we bring aphids up elderflower trees and I've seen all those because we have a community orchard that I volunteer at, and we see a lot of aphids that have been brought along by the ants. So you got to be very, very careful and watchful of the ants bringing all these things along, and if they bring them along, you need to wipe them up and make sure that no more ants are bringing in aphids, because it affects the production level of the trees and the other plants. They also bring the aphids of my sunflower. Yeah, they bring aphids up the sunflower and up the dahlias, because these plants have some crooks where the aphids can hide under the back of the flower and just be producing and multiplying. That's what the ants will do. They go and put them in at the back. You need to take a look at the back of your flowers and be sure that it doesn't have anything behind it looking black and trying to spread bigger. If it does, you may want to wipe it off or you actually cut it off. Depends on how many. For example, if my sunflower is producing just one head, and I see if it's on it. So I'm going to wipe it off with wet tissue because I'm not going to be ready to break off the head of the sunflower for those. So I would carefully wipe it off. But if it's a zinnia or a dahlia or a cosmos, there's going to be so many of them that if I see aphids around one of the flowers stalk, I would be prepared to cut off that entire flower and send the aphids to a nice place just to protect my garden and not have all the stress of having to wipe and wipe because it's not very easy wiping the plant. You have to plan it so that it doesn't drop into your garden bed. Mm, it takes a short while to actually wipe a plant than if you are ready to break it off and get rid of it. That you can do quicker. So that's what I have to say about the aphids. So, what other thing that we have about the growing that I'm talking about is we can actually have um, a situation where we share ideas on how to grow, but we must not be thinking, oh, because I've shared this idea, somebody else who has come along must also do the same thing as I said, because there is so much space or under these skies, there's so much space in the space that everybody else can do their own thing. Don't be worried and don't be overcome with, oh, I was the one that shared this idea and this other person is starting to share it. Your crowd is different from each other. Your crowd, even if you are living in the same house, if both of you are living in the same house, you may have the same subscribers. The same people may be subscribed to you, but there will still be some people that are subscribed to you that are not subscribed to both of you. It means your crowds are different. The people that are watching you are different. So don't overstress yourself. Don't overwork your mind about somebody else is copying what you're doing. I am on YouTube showing my garden and looking forward to people to copy everything that I do in my garden. I am always happy when people send me pictures on WhatsApp to show me their plants. And I will be like, oh, that's lovely, because that is exactly my own purpose. I'm doing this thing so that you can copy it. If you are a YouTuber, copy it. Even if you are not a YouTube gardener and I do something and you want to copy it, please, you're welcome. That is my own way of delivering this this world into a better place. Is to show you what I know, let you do it too, because the things that I know I'm going to share are good things. They are going to be things that are going to help our planet, things that are going to help everybody to be able to have a better way of life. It's not just going to be you can copy it, you can redo it, even if you're not in a certain niche, you just want to do one or two, feel free, go ahead, and everyone is happy. That is how it should be with me. I don't want a situation where somebody thinks, oh, I'm not going to copy exactly what that person has done, copy it exactly word for word, and just go on and do it. It's in your own garden, it's in your own place, you are using your own materials. And even if I send you the seeds, you just have to grow it the same way I'm growing it to be able to get a very good result. That is how I think we should do things. And even in science, we have to copy exact procedures for us to be able to get exact results. If you don't copy exact procedures, do the timing, do the temperature, do the way the wind and everything the same way, you're not going to get the same result. And you know the result you want to get from what you have seen on certain videos, then you have to do it in that same way. I know there's a lot of gardeners that come along and try to show you something, but they are not actually telling you. Because for a long, long time, because I'm going to say this, I would just wonder why these gardeners have such large peppers with so many on it until I finally discovered by myself that you can overwinter your pepper, and my peppers are now having a lot more on them. Because when you are told overwinter your pepper, you have to also be told that your pepper is supposed to be overwintered. The pepper is not going to grow a lot in its first year. So I go along every year and buy new peppers and thinking, yeah, it's going to grow bigger this year. If I put it in a bigger pot, it's going to grow bigger. If I put it in a deeper pot, it's going to grow bigger. I've tried so many, many options. I've tried big pot, I tried deep pot, I tried in the sun, I tried so much food compost, but they were all year one tomatoes. So yes, they increased. I saw differences in amounts by the amount of compost and the depth of the pot and so on and so forth. But I still never saw as much harvest as I saw with some people. But they did overwintering videos. But when you are doing an overwintering video, let people know that overwintering is actually what a pepper needs. So don't say, I'm going to go to the shop and buy a new one next year. A new one is not going to grow as much as the one you had last year. Look after the pepper you had the year and grow it in the current year, and it's going to bring you bigger peppers. If you take your pepper that you have this year, you throw it away and say, I'm just going to buy a pepper for £3.25, or I'm just going to grow a pepper and have new, fresh, young peppers, you're not going to get as much peppers. That's just what I want to say. Peppers need to be overwintered for you to be able to get a very good yield of your pepper plants. So please pass this message on. Everybody who hears it, you don't need to throw your pepper plant out. Keep it, cut it, cut off the leaves, make it short, and keep it. Keep it where it's not going to die of cold. And when the new season comes, your pepper will come back because the pepper is just like a weed. When you take a weed and you take off all the leaves, but the root still in the ground, in the new year, the pepper, the weed would usually grow back. So please take note. That is what the pepper does as well. The pepper will come back in the new year. Because I have as an example, when I left my pepper plant, and when I left my moringa plant indoors, I took off all the leaves and then it started growing indoors. And I was thinking, oh, this moringa is still growing. And I was taking off the leaves and using it while indoors. But it was winter. It was receiving sunlight because it was by the window, but the amount of sunlight it was receiving was not enough. So it was using up the energy that had already been stored inside the plant root. So as I was there saying that I'm overwintering my moringa plant, but it is still growing, by the time we reached March, it was not spring yet, but my moringa just slowed down. And I was like, oh, is it going into dormancy? Is it? No, it was dying. It was dying because it has been overworked. Throughout the spring, throughout the winter, sorry, I meant throughout the winter, it was fruit and it was leafing and leafing. Yeah, it was leaves throughout the winter, it was producing leaves and producing leaves and producing leaves. I should not have allowed it to be producing leaves. I should have cut it short and made sure it wasn't producing any leaves. But I didn't understand how to overwinter the moringa then. So I just let them, there were four of them, I just let them produce whatever leaves they wanted to produce. And by all four of them were dead, they couldn't produce any more leaves, and they just gave up the ghost. They gave up the ghost not in January, not in February, but in March, when we just had spring round the corner. That was when they gave up the ghost. That is because the energy that's stored in the plant in the past summer, when I brought the plant in October ending, early November, there was still enough energy for it to keep going in November. There was still enough energy to keep going December, January, February. And by the time we now got to March, spring will come in April. They could not carry on. The energy had been used up and the plants died. So my moringa, when I overwinter it, will not be allowed to be putting out any leaves. It will not be allowed at all. It has to stay just as the root and the stem. I don't want to see any leaves because those leaves are being produced at the expense of the survival of the plant. You need to make sure the leaves are not coming along. That is the way to get a very good sturdy plant in the new year for any plant that you are overwintering. That's what happens with weeds. We cut them up, their roots are in the soil, and they come back. Now, one thing I'm going to mention is that for every plant I have, and which is what I think almost everybody do, you have to learn because all plants are different from each other. I'm going to give you an example. I have so many plants growing and they're all looking well, but then I have the Kalanchoe blossfediana, which is popularly known as flaming Katie. It flowers, it blooms. It's either red, bright pink, bright yellow. It's just got a whole range of beautiful colors. The flaming Katie. In the first year, this flaming Katie was really blooming beautifully, and we were all over it and enjoying the blooms. And in the second year, it just grew and grew and grew until it almost died. So I had to take off a leaf. I mean, not just one, I took off two leaves. I take off two leaves and stick it in the soil. This started growing, and then we got a new um, flaming Katie. But this flaming Katie as well has been growing and growing. And I'll just go over and check a look at flaming Katie online and see, yeah, I'm growing it. It's growing from the leaves. It's growing and things like that. But I did not specifically find out how to make it bloom, how to make it flower. And I only just recently did that research, and I have to keep it in the dark. That is one thing we have to do for every one of our plants. If you want your plant to bloom, or you want your plant to flower, or you want your plant to be a certain way, you have to spend a few hours studying this online on YouTube. There are so many people that have put off information on YouTube. You need to take a look at it and then you will know. Now I know how to make my um, flaming kitty to flower and I've put it there in the dark and I'm looking forward to seeing the buds as promised. Also, my jade plant, mm, I wouldn't I wouldn't mind if it flowers this year, but if it doesn't flower this year, I've learned how to make it to flower next year as well. And that is to keep it in the dark. I learned this 2 years ago, but because my jade, I'm still enjoying the greenness of it. I'm still enjoying the beauty of it being green. I'm not yet bothered about making it to flower because I've been to Kew Gardens and seen the flowering um, jade in Kew Gardens. And I'm not in a rush to make this one flower because the flowering jade in Kew Gardens is like 5 feet tall. Yeah, that jade is like 5 feet tall, and my jade also is way 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 from that. My jade is just like a very tiny midget near that one. So that's why I'm not even really keen on stressing it or forcing it or tricking it into flowering yet. When it grows maybe another summer, then I would try making my jade to flower. But this year, if it flowers by itself, it's welcome because it's got a very nice scent. The jade has got a very nice scent when it flowers. So it will be very welcome if it does flower. But if it does not, next year I will be looking forward to making it flower. And that is by following all the things that I saw when I checked it on YouTube. I checked it online, I read it, and then I checked it on YouTube and saw how somebody did tricking the jade into flowering. You keep it in the basement or you keep it under a carton. So I will do that and then allow the jade to flower. But right now, I have my flaming Katie in the dark because I'm looking forward to it flowering now. As we are going into winter, we are already in winter anyway. As we are in, I want it to flower this winter. I want to see the beautiful flowering of it because the flaming Katy can actually flower 3 times in a year. So if it's able to flower, I would really, really like that. I think I have two different types of flaming Katy, and one of them is pink. The other one, I don't know the color because it has never flowered. It grew and grew. It grew to over a foot tall with three main stems, but it did not flower. But it looked really beautiful. I did not know how to make the flaming Katy to flower at that time. And then I had to go online, do some research. I saw some YouTube videos and I saw how to make it flower. So I'm just looking forward to my second flaming Katy, which is quite small. When it gets big, I'll try to make it to flower. But I have two other flaming Katies that are big enough. I've put them in the dark and I'm looking forward to seeing some buds because I've been told that if you keep them in the dark for about 2 weeks, then they throw out some buds and you can now bring them out, water them, and allow the flowering process to carry on. So, what I enjoy about being on YouTube is the sheer knowledge that you gain by being on YouTube. But being on YouTube, you can learn so many things. You can learn so many things that you didn't even know existed. I learned about people just getting this metal detectors and finding metal things as a hobby. I used to think metal detecting was something that was done if they were searching for something that was lost professionally. I didn't know. But watching you do it as a hobby, I so much enjoyed it because I was just like, you just hold your metal detector and you walk around. I have this hobby of beach combing. I go to the beach and pick stones. I have many stones that have different shapes, and I just like looking at them. I like picking shells, and they are just so interesting as well. But I've never actually consider that one of metal detecting to be a hobby. It's really, really interesting, and I find it to be very beautiful. Thank you for sharing that hobby because I really enjoy watching the metal detecting, finding metal things just in the soil. It's really, really interesting. It's, you may find something and you may not know what it is, but all the same, finding things that you did not know were there, but you use a tool to get it out is actually very interesting to me. Many other topics as well. I'll show you. I'll show you. I don't know. I think this. Hmm, I don't know if they're barnacles or cockles. This is what it looks like. It's stuck to the rock. So if they're barnacles, this the top, and when there's a lot of water, it closes and it stays permanently on one rock. This another one. Now, when I go to the seaside, I pick this. But you can see that they are complete sets. Now, the way to pick this is to go when the tide is out. If you go to the seaside when the tide is out, they will be there and they will still be probably alive or something. They may be alive, they may not be alive, but there will still be something inside. So you would have to pick it and put it in a strong container. Don't just keep it and put it in your bag or so. Keep it in a strong container so that when you now get home, you can wash it and clean it out as if you're cleaning something, then disinfect it, and you have each one that I clean, I put a number inside. Yeah. When I cleaned it, this is number 8. Put the same number in both of them so that you can, without so much stress, be able to find the body and the lead. So this is a complete one, and I like these things because it's the complete set. And this is a complete set. It's got its number inside as well. This is one of the ones I didn't number. It's obvious. The base and the lead. I don't know. I don't know why it doesn't have a number, but a lot of them have numbers to them. I can't even find how to open this one. You would almost think it's a stone when you see it, but you know you can't find stones this big when the tide is out. So when you see it, you will know. You pick it. This is the portion where it's attached to the rock while it was in the sea. I'm trying to open it. Okay, yeah. So this is the lead of it, and I think it says number 6. But because of the camera, it's going to be like in opposite direction. So it's actually number 6. That's what that is saying. And I wash it and put them together, label it 6 6 so that I can know that these two are together. So all these things are just hobbies that I enjoy doing, that I have found other people also doing. I find some other people on YouTube say, "Oh, I also am a beach comber. I collect shells. I collect metal objects. I collect stones, rocks, and so many other things." I've seen people who actually shine their rocks. They shine it and polish it, and you can't believe it's it's not something so expensive, because it's really shiny. You know the kind of rock to pick, and then you get home, you shine it. It looks very good. You can discover so many things to keep you busy, to keep you entertained, to keep you relevant, and to keep you not out of your mind when you have to go out to the seaside and you've watched a few YouTube channels. You will find it. I'm just leaning towards that thing. You will find it really interesting, and that's one reason why I enjoy being on YouTube. It's having different things to do allows me to be able to talk on so many topics with my friends. It depends on what you want to talk about. If I have an idea of it, or we'll talk about it. Thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate your company, and I look forward to seeing you again. Expect to see more of you, because I'm going to be getting better and better. Trial and practice makes perfect. That's what I am doing. Thank you for coming, and have a nice evening. Bye.